What to say about Halo Infinite multiplayer? Well, in this video, I'm going to go over what I perceive as some of the core aspects that make a good video game. However, since in the first review I went over sounds, graphics, and controls, and since these are the same in multiplayer, I will not be going over these again. To draw a clear line between multiplayer and the campaign, I will consider everything you are able to download and play for free as the multiplayer. The rest will fall under campaign, and I will not be going over those. The gameplay in Halo Infinite is solid. Infinite multiplayer has made an attempt to return to its roots. Halo Combat Evolved was a sandbox-driven game, meaning that the player didn't have a bunch of powers or abilities by themselves. As Halo progressed through the years, more and more abilities were given to the player. In Halo 5, players could ground pound, thrust, sprint, and hover from the beginning of every match. In Infinite, the focus has returned to the sandbox. The speed of the sprint has been reduced from other Halos, and the player has no other abilities from the start of the match. The players have to compete to retrieve the different abilities and weapons they want. The reason I liked that 343 returned these items to the sandbox is because I feel like it creates a more even playing field for each game. I don't need to be concerned about having my loadout set up correctly or what the current meta is. Each player starts out each game in the exact same situation, except for the player's skill and the teammates they bring with them. The armor abilities being included in the sandbox feels great. The problem with the armor abilities is the balance. The grapple shot is extremely powerful. After learning a few tricks with it, the grapple shot is a great ability to gain positioning. The repulsor is really useful as well, and I think the only piece of equipment that can actually kill someone. All the other pieces of equipment are more nuanced. They only have a specific set of situations that they can be useful in. The deployable cover takes a while to deploy, so when used incorrectly in the middle of a fight, it will usually get you killed. However, when used correctly and at the right time, the deployable cover will absorb a rocket, a melee, or even a shot or two, so with good usage, it can save your life. The threat sensor is the last piece of equipment, and it is pretty weak. The sensor range is not that far, and the enemy can very easily destroy it. That doesn't mean it is useless. If stuck to an enemy or to check for corner campers, it can be helpful. But compared to the other equipment, it falls pretty short. The thruster can be helpful, but generally is not going to turn the tide of many fights. It is not powerful enough to change positioning that much. Mostly it is used to try and dodge grenades and rockets. The overshield and invisibility now count as equipment, which means they are not used immediately when picked up. I think this is a pretty cool addition. If one of these pieces of equipment are being contested, then it probably gets used immediately. But when they are not, it gives the player a lot more freedom to when and where they want to use it. The gunplay is pretty good. A few of the guns could use a little less power, and a few of the guns could use a lot more. The assault rifle in this Halo is really strong. It could probably use a bit of a nerf. Maybe something as simple as removing the headshot multiplier on it. Killing another player at medium distance is inconsistent because of the bloom and the headshot damage. This can lead to frustration. The plasma pistol, in retrospect, is consistently bad. This weapon no longer has the ability to EMP. Combine that with its low damage, needing to be charged to be useful, and the bullet velocity being so slow it is hard to hit, the plasma pistol is almost useless. Several other guns have similar problems. It seems like 343 tried to trim the number of guns in this game. Each gun seems to have a particular role, and if a gun from previous games filled that same role, it didn't make it into the game. So the Covenant Carbine didn't make it in. Maybe because the Covenant weren't in this game? Or maybe because the battle rifle already filled that role. A lot of the guns from several different games didn't make it in. No beam rifle, DMR, SMG, traditional shotgun, laser, plasma rifle, and the list goes on. Perhaps this was because of development issues and they didn't have time, or perhaps they're planning on reintroducing them later. Moving on to customization. As most people feared with Halo moving to a free-to-play model, this area is heavily monetized. If you bought the campaign and played through that, there were some customizations that could be unlocked, but mostly just a few colors and charms. Free customization is extremely limited in the first season. The people that are free to play will enjoy a few predefined color palettes and icons. Every couple of weeks, a rotation of a few events will pop up that give a few pieces of armor, color palettes, or weapon skins, which are just color palettes for your weapons. The shop, though, is filled with brand new items quite frequently. If you want to pay $10 for a new emblem or a new color, you can do that pretty much daily. The items are way too expensive for my opinion. If you talk to anyone about this, they will agree that the shop is horrible. Customization, in general, is horrible. Speaking of things that are horrible, progression. I don't just mean the progression through the season pass. I think they fixed that pretty quickly. If your gamer personality is an achiever or a completionist, there is really nothing for you in this game. If you buy the season pass, you can progress through that, but the way it is done is horrible. The first 3 games every day give you good experience, but after that, the only way to progress is by completing weekly challenges. These have been frustrating to me from day one. You can only work on 3 challenges at a time. Unless you buy the season pass, then you get 4. These challenges tell you what guns or game types you have to play to progress. If I'm a Fiesta casual or a hardcore ranked player, these will make you very little progress. You have to play their way. Halo Infinite also has a lot of missing content. Content that has become quite popular over the years. Warzone was one of the best additions to Halo in my opinion. The large-scale PvPvE was awesome. I spent hours and hours playing it by myself or with my clan. Frequently, my clan would fill an entire Warzone team and play for hours. Not only did Warzone not return, but not even Firefight came back, which was another popular PvE game mode. A number of popular game types are also not included. No Assault, Infection, or Juggernaut. Playlist selection also quite limited. One new addition to the game is Academy, which has several cool new features. Since the campaign is not free to play, there was no tutorial without Academy. I liked the weapon drills, and I used them a lot the first few days of playing Halo Infinite. This features pretty much a gun range where you get to jump in and try whichever gun you want. You don't just practice against stationary targets though. You get to shoot passive bots that go from standing still to strafing and ducking. Academy also added aggressive bots. You get to choose a map, choose the difficulty, weapons, equipment, and in a simulated game that ends whenever you want, you get to try these out. You can change a lot of these features mid-game. One small critique I have to the weapon drills is I wish they had leaderboards. The weapon drills are timed and the player receives points based on the amount of damage done. I would have enjoyed comparing my scores against my friends instead of just a 1 to 3 star rating. Halo has always been known for its iconic maps, and several maps have been really popular and made repeat appearances over the years, like Blood Gulch, Damnation, and Battle Creek from Halo Combat Evolved, or like Zanzibar, Ivory Tower, Lockout from Halo 2. However, in Halo Infinite, most of the levels are too simple and don't have enough personality. When it comes to general level design, the maps are not bad, but I would like to see more unique interactions with the actual map that gives each map its own unique feel. Currently in the game, most lack this. I'm not trying to say they're all bad, a few of them I really like, for example, Recharge, Aquarius, and Fragmentation. Recharge is probably my favorite map. This asymmetrical map has a really good design that creates interactions from players from multiple levels with several different encounter distances. The water hazard on one side and the batteries lifting up and down on the other give it a little bit of personality. The weapon layout is also well done. Jumping over the water hazard for the power weapon makes for some entertaining interactions. Aquarius is a reimagination of a classic design. It will remind you a lot of Midship or Derelict. Even though the level design itself is not inspired, it is an improved version of the classic, with good sightlines and a good aesthetic. This design can make for a high-intensity start to the game. You spawn in, and you're staring at your 4 opponents, and depending on the starting weapon, an engagement can start immediately. Fragmentation is a large-scale map that only appears in the Big Team Battle playlist. This map looks like it may have gotten some of its inspiration from Blood Gulch, with 2 bases that everyone spawns near and man cannons at those bases to launch everyone close to center, although this map is not nearly as open with huge sightlines that Blood Gulch was. This map features multiple lanes with a large mountain in the middle, so players are funneled into a few different areas, which create large, high-intensity fights. A few common problems are present in many of the other maps. The weapon layouts in several of these maps are not very fair or not very conducive to the level design. Each map has several weapon layouts, so in one of the layouts for Behemoth, which features a wide open outer edge, there are no precision weapons. In another map called Deadlock, one side gets a more powerful long-range weapon. Most of the maps do not have very good areas for vehicle combat. There is little to no space to get around and maneuver. Another problem is a lack of visual variation. 7 of the 10 maps available take place in a human facility or immediately outside of one. When the maps don't have a lot of personality and don't visually differ a lot, it gives the player the feeling they're playing the same map over and over again. One of the few maps that don't take place in a human facility is Deadlock. But instead of putting an entire banished facility, you fight around a tower, a bridge, and a huge missed opportunity in the middle of the map. A huge anti-aircraft gun is placed there. Being able to enter this emplacement, or even fire it, would have given the map a lot of personality. But instead, you can only walk under it.
It's yours. Now we keep it.
Things Halo Infinite multiplayer did well: core gameplay, armor abilities, gunplay, the academy, relatively smooth launch, good matchmaking performance, and I didn't go over it in this review, but the sounds, graphics, and controls were all top-notch. A few things I didn't mention earlier but I really liked: all the new medals that were added, some you see very rarely, which does make them really cool to get. The UI was also really customizable. I was actually really impressed with being able to change team colors, HUD opacity, turn off text chat, frame counters, and a lot more. On to things they did wrong: player customizations, progression, no good PvE, missing game modes, missing playlists, uninspired level design, and a less detailed post-carnage report. There is a lot good about this game, and it is a game that you can spend a lot of time playing. The problem Halo Infinite multiplayer has is it feels unfinished. With such limited options, it feels more like you're playing an open beta rather than a AAA full release. There's just so much missing content. When you consider the game is free to play though, it is hard not to say to pick it up and give it a try. I would definitely recommend to anyone that they should pick it up. Grab a couple of friends and you will have hours of fun. I would even recommend grabbing the first season pass while you still can. The season pass is not that expensive at $9.99, and you can progress on it even after the first season has ended. The store I would say to stay away from. Generally speaking, the items are way overpriced. The last thing I would say is that 343 has laid down a good foundation. A lot of these problems can be fixed. The Halo fans will return, and as new features get added, maybe even some newcomers. I hope that people that did try the game were not discouraged from returning. Thanks for watching my review on Halo Infinite's multiplayer. Stay tuned for more reviews and gameplay later on.